Example 4 asks us, if the sine of theta times the secant of theta is greater than 0, determine the possible quadrants in which the angle theta lies. So we want to look and break this down. So it says, the sine of theta times secant of theta is greater than 0. So we have these two different parts. Well, think about how we can make this happen. Either that would mean that if we have two things multiplied together to make a positive number, either A sine of theta is greater than 0 and secant of theta is also greater than 0, or we have the sine of theta could be less than 0 and the secant of theta could also be less than 0. So either both values are going to be positive, meaning a positive times a positive makes a positive number, or both values have to be negative, meaning that a negative times a negative would make a positive. So we want to check and look and see exactly when is this going to occur. So if we think about our quadrants and we think about what these values mean, so let's think about sine real quick. Well, sine is going to be positive up here. So we've got our sine is going to be positive up in the first. Maybe I should change that real quick. Sorry. So let's say our sine. Oops. Our sine is going to be positive in the first two quadrants on the top. So we know that it's only going to have the option to be positive in the first or second for sine being positive. Likewise, sine is going to be negative in the third and fourth quadrants, so the bottom. So we know that, okay, so we've got third and our fourth quadrants. Those are going to result in negative values because sine, remember, is like attached to like our y coordinate if we want to think of it on the xy plane. When we look at, let's say, secant is 1 divided by cosine. So it depends on the value of cosine. Well, cosine is positive in the first and fourth quadrants. And cosine is negative in the second and third quadrants. So we've got second and third. So what we have to do is figure out, how do these things match up together? Well, if we look at our first part where sine has to be positive and secant has to also be positive, the only place where that occurs, where they match, is in the first quadrant. And when we look for both of them being negative, sine is negative in the third and fourth, secant is negative in the second and third. Well, they both agree that it could be there. So if we look in the first quadrant or the third quadrant, those are the only places where sine and cosine share the same sign. So that's what we're looking for. So we want to determine what kind of coordinate parts do our trig functions work with, and where are they positive and negative, and try to see where we can match those things up.